Hi, and welcome to another episode of the Cover Zero podcast, the show where I cover the least in the best way possible. I'm your host, Jason Wells. Today is March 27th, and we're kind of in the dog days of the off-season right now. Nothing's really happening in free agency anymore. All of the guys kind of left there are just going to be hanging out till after the draft happens because teams want to draft who they want to draft, and then they'll be like, okay, we didn't land who we wanted to land. Come in, vet free agents, we'll give you a bag. But no, yeah, these are the episodes where I don't really have a lot to talk about. We obviously have some things to talk about. The NFL trying to ruin the league is one thing. Obviously, I'll get into it, but yeah, I was looking back at like my episodes from this time last year, and I was like, what the hell was I talking about that time last year? And those episodes were like 15 to 20 minutes. Like, they were not long episodes. And that just kind of, it's like, I've gotten better at this, obviously. I mean, you can tell, of course I'm getting better at this. But, yeah, I'm hoping this is going to be more than 30 minutes. It should. I think I have enough topics and things to talk about. But obviously, like all episodes, we will start off with the NFL Weekly Update. Few things to talk about there. And then I'm going to talk about this wide receiver draft class. Not a lot. I mean, it's a very, 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 very deep draft class at wide receiver. So I'm going to talk about my top 10 guys outside of those top 3. We know who the top 3 are. Let's talk about the next 10. So I'll talk about 13 wide receivers today. And yeah, we'll go from there. But yeah, should be a quicker episode than usual, but also longer than they were last year. If you're noticing, I'm rocking the cozy landscaping sweater that I just got today. That is my new employer, who has been putting me through the ringer to start off. Not really. It's been good. Getting to know the guys, getting the setup. I can't wait for it to actually be warm and sunny out because it's warm out. It's like 10 degrees, but it's just windy as hell. I hate the wind. The wind sucks. I think the wind is probably like my least favorite type of thing. I'm fine with the rain. I'm fine with snow. It's just if it's windy, wind is miserable. I hate wind. I know wind's important for probably something, but who knows? I'm sure smart people actually do know what wind does environmentally. I don't know what I'm talking about. So let's get into the episode. Let's get into NFL Weekly Update here. Starting from the top, the NFL, so the coaches had their meetings. I mean, the owners had their meetings, and the NFL is effectively becoming a flag football league. If you did not hear the news, the NFL has banned hip drop and swivel tackles, which is essentially if this is what happened to Mark Andrews, where Logan Wilson tackled him, and Logan Wilson basically, he wrapped him at the waist and basically just went dead weight on him to prevent him from getting a first down, because that's the goal of football, is to stop your opponent for gaining yards. That's exactly what Logan Wilson did, and unfortunately it ended in an injury for Mark Andrews, who is one of the marquee players in this league. But yeah, so that type of tackle is banned now, where if you wrap them around the waist and you just kind of dead weight yourself and like fall on their legs so they can, again, to stop them from moving forward, that's not allowed. And I know there's probably a better definition of what a hip drop tackle is. That's what I'm going off of anyways. It's dumb. I tweeted about it. I think this is the beginning of the end for the NFL. It's already almost impossible to tackle as a defender. You can't hit below the knees. You can't hit above the shoulders. And now you can't wrap the guy at the waist and like bring him down forcefully anymore. You have to, and people are saying, oh, you can just tackle like rugby. As someone who played rugby and rugby at a high level, it's not the same. They're completely different sports for that matter. In football, you have a big helmet, you got big shoulder pads. It limits the separation and how well you can wrap up. And in rugby, the goal of rugby is to maintain possession of the ball. When you see someone getting tackled, it's rather you unload the ball and that guy still tackles you, whatever, gets off, play keeps going, or you motor down and you being like, I need to maintain possession of this ball, and you go down so your team can then pick up the ball, keep going, whatever. And the angles of which you can tackle in rugby are just different. Again, because it's a different sport. Because I saw people like, oh, you just got to tackle like the rugby players do. It's not the same. The goal in football is to move your way down the field until you eventually score. And there are yard markers. You have 4 downs to get the 10 yards. Where that's what happened to Mark Andrews, where if Logan Wilson would have done a rugby-type tackle, Mark Andrews would have got the first down on that play. Because it would have been, instead of Logan Wilson wrapping him up and then basically dead-weighting him and stopping him in his tracks, he would have continued to drive forward with Mark Andrews' own momentum and given him an extra 3-4 yards on the play, which would have been, I think, a first down or close to a first down anyways. And that makes it immediately tough on all defenders trying to make a tackle now. I'm not a fan of this. I think it's already very hard for defenders to know what their role is, and now offensive coaches are going to start exploiting it, where they'll have their bigger tight ends or maybe fullbacks. Maybe this is the resurgence of the fullback, and everything's good. But where like tight ends are going to go on the flats, and these smaller corners who aren't going to be able to tackle that way anymore are just going to kind of get mauled. I'm not a fan. I'm not a fan of it. I get the injury thing, and you don't want players getting hurt, but football is one of the most physical games on the planet, and people are going to get hurt. People are going to get hurt regardless. And I don't think this is a play that, I mean, the NFL came out and said that, oh, on 20% of the plays or whatever, like people get hurt. I think they also said, though, that the play only happens once or twice a game. So again, that 20% is very, very low. But again, it just gives the refs another opportunity to misjudge games and call things incorrectly, which they do all the time. We're human. We make errors. It's what we do. But just giving refs and giving offenses another opportunity to move down the field through penalties is very unfair, in my opinion. It is what it is. The NFLPA came out with a statement. They were not happy about it, obviously. The statement said, the players oppose any attempt by the NFL to implement a rule prohibiting a swivel hip drop tackle. While the NFLPA remains committed to improvements to our game with health and safety in mind, we cannot support a rule change that causes confusion for us as players, for coaches, for officials, and especially for fans. We call on the NFL again to reconsider implementing this rule. I agree, bang on. I think the NFLPA nailed it there with that statement. I'll also just add, like, this is maybe going to be kind of like the PI rule where they brought it in for a year, where you could, like, challenge a pass interference call. It might just be a 1-year thing, and the NFL at the end of this year is like, oh, sorry, that was really stupid. Let's get rid of that. But the other thing they're doing, too, is if the refs don't call it, those players are going to get fined, which is also ridiculous. Everything about this rule is terrible. Not a fan. I don't know how you can support it. I don't know. It is what it is. Yeah, not a fan. Flag football is here sooner than you think. And flag football is a lot of fun, but it's not the NFL and it's not the sport that I love covering. But let's keep going. A newer rule, another rule that got approved this week was new kickoff rule. So old kickoff, or the way kickoffs used to be. It's basically a touchback every single play. Kickers boot it through the end zone. If the guy fields it in the end zone, it's also like, okay, I'm just going to take a knee, bring it to the 25. And they moved, because it used to be further back, and it used to be guys can't kick through the end zone, and there was more opportunities, but it was also guys running from like their 40-yard line as hard as they could at the other team's guys, and that's what led to a lot of injuries, and that's why they moved the line up, but then it just kind of killed kickoffs and kick returns essentially, which are a very important part of the game. I love kick returns, and I'm happy that this new rule, which I will now explain, is happening. So essentially, the kicker lines up on their 35-yard line to kick the ball, just the kicker. The remaining 10 players on the field are at the opposing 40-yard line. And then the receiving team, so they got 2 returners back there, and then 9 guys lined up at the 35. So we got 10 guys on the 40, 9 guys on the 35, 2 returners back there, and the kicker all the way back 20 yards further. So this is what the XFL did, and where essentially the kicker kicks it, rarely goes into the end zone for a touchback type thing, and both teams, like both the blockers and the special teams guys, not the returners, they cannot move until that ball is caught, and then they can move forward. So I think this allows special teams coaches to scheme up some plays, and it'll be, I don't know, it's easier to find gaps, and I think this is great. I think this is going to be a new era of kick return guys in the NFL. And this is how guys carved out like a name for themselves in the league, which just hasn't happened. Guys like Percy Harvin, Devin Hester, who just got into the Hall of Fame. This is what he did, and it got kind of taken away for a decade, and now it's back. A guy like Jacoby Jones and Josh Cribbs. Like, we haven't had guys like that in a while, and this will allow teams to have just a return specialist, and I cannot wait for it. I think this is a great rule. I think this is a rule I talked about in one of my episodes this time last year when I talked about, rules I'd like to change, is this XFL kickoff rule. They brought kickoffs back, thank God. Very, very excited. Yeah, I think it should lead to more return touchdowns this year. Should definitely decrease the amount of touchbacks. So a big for the NFL for banning the swivel hip drop tackle, but a major win for implementing this new kickoff rule. I am excited. And other than that, I mean, there was the annual coach's picture that always happens at these meetings. Andy Reid in his Hawaiian shirt and his shorts. Dave Canales tried to copy the shorts move from Big Red there. Doesn't have the same sauce on it. Gerard Mayo in a t-shirt looking like a unit. Other than that, Dennis Allen looking absolutely forgettable, which that's what he is. He's a forgettable coach. He's just along for the ride until this roster is able to get retooled and reshaped, and then he'll get kicked to the curb. But yeah, I guess we can get into some more NFL news here. Starting off with the trade. L'Jarius Sneed, the Chiefs corner, 2-time Super Bowl champion, has been traded to the Titans for a 2025 third-round pick and a 2024 seventh-round pick. Obviously not what the Chiefs expected his value to be when they tagged him, but I'll talk about the Chiefs side in a bit. But the Titans, I literally said last week, you guys are having one of the worst off seasons. I didn't like a majority of their moves, and I still don't really. I think that they're trying to contend, and it makes sense. They're trying to contend on Will Levis's rookie contract, which most teams should do. The Titans obviously believe in Will Levis, and that's why they're investing so much and a bunch in these vet free agents. And it's not like the Titans really have any guys to pay coming up, because their draft classes have not been great as of recent. Christian Fulton, who was a first-round pick, he's now on the Chargers. Isaiah Wilson, who was, I think, 2020 or 2021, That guy didn't even play a single snap in the league. Like Traylon Burks just kind of stinks. Like they don't have to pay anyone coming up. They have all of their like marquee guys locked up already. So it allows them to spend that much money when they don't have to spend on their own guys. And I like the way it's shaping for the Titans. I've always been a fan of their defense, but I've also been a fan of their defense because Mike Vrabel is the head coach. They still got Jeffrey Simmons. They still have Harold Landry. Now they pair L'Jarius Sneed up with Chidobe Awuzie. It's a very good corner room. They got Roger McCreary at the nickel. Like, that's a very good defensive back corner room. I think Amani Hooker is one of the safeties. I forget who their other guy is. Like, the defense is solid. Their offense, they're definitely picking a tackle at 7. They're rebuilding this offensive line. Like, the roster is good. I am a fan of the Titans roster, but at the end of the day, I think that they still might be the 4th best team in the division. It is what it is. I'm not a believer in Will Levis. I think Will Levis, he flashed and he showed some promise, but he had 8 touchdowns in his 9 games, I think, that he played last year, and 4 of those came in his first start. And again, not to blame him because the Titans' offense was abysmal. There was fucking no one on that team other than Derrick Henry doing anything. But this is a big prove it year for the Titans, and it is truly boom or bust. It's rather Will Levis takes off and this team is contending for the division, or it's all going to backfire and it'll be like, okay, we need a new quarterback next year. I guess we will see. And this is also like part of the reason why I think that they made, or why they were allowed to make a lot of these moves, is because Mike Vrabel wasn't there. I think Mike Vrabel wanted a lot of roster control, especially since John Robinson essentially fucked him by trading A.J. Brown and then just drafting a guy who could become A.J. Brown. Not really a smart move. But if Mike Vrabel was still the head coach of this team, these moves wouldn't have happened because I think Mike Vrabel kind of saw the team how I saw the team going into this offseason, where he's like, we got nothing to work with right now. And I don't think that I don't think that he would have liked signing Calvin Ridley for $23 million a year, or paying Tony Pollard, or like those kind of moves. So it's like, that's why Vrabel is gone. I think that Rand Carthen is putting together, again, it's a good roster. I just still think it's the 4th best team in the division. Now, I do think this is going to be a very competitive division. And now I'm looking at it where it's like, who's bad in the AFC? The Patriots? No one in the AFC North. No one in the AFC South. And then Broncos, Chargers, Raiders. Four bad teams. I'll take away the Raiders because I don't think the Raiders are going to be terrible. I'll take away the Chargers because I also don't think the Chargers are going to be terrible, but the Chargers just don't have any talent on their team. The Broncos are going to be ass, but it's going to be a tough AFC. It's going to be tougher than it was last year, and last year was tough as shit. So yeah, that's the L'Jarius Sneed trade. I forget what his contract was. It ended up being like, I think, 19 million AAV. So good deal that the Titans did get him on. I think that he got what was I gonna say? I think that he got like 50 mil guaranteed. Like he did get a lot of guarantees, but he is a very good player. He was integral to the Chiefs on those Super Bowl runs. I mean, he had that punch out, I think, on Gus Edwards on the goal line in that AFC Championship game against the Ravens, which, again, kind of turned the tides of that game. He is an impact player. He is a very good player. He deserved the payday. But at the end of it, the Chiefs also just kind of mismanaged and fumbled his value, because if they didn't tag him at the start of the free agency period, the Chiefs would have had 20 mil more in cap space to work with, could have readjusted the roster. I mean, we just saw what Tyron Smith got from the Jets, $6 million for 1 year. You don't think the Chiefs would have wanted to do that? And now it does open that money for the Chiefs now, but they could have had it at the start of the free agency period, and Sneed could have signed. anywhere essentially, gotten a bag from anyone, and the Chiefs then could have gotten a comp third round pick, which the way the Titans think that they're trending, it's going to be, let's say, a third round pick in the 10 to 20 range, where the comp picks are after the 32 teams in that third round. So it's like, would have been like, I don't know, like a 20 pick difference probably in third round pick, but you would have also had an extra 20 million at the start of free agency to play with. And I'm sure that Brett Veach wishes that he did just let Snead walk. I think they were hoping that they could garner a second for him, but I think that Snead's asking price for a contract was too rich. One more shout out to the Titans though, because two teams were interested, or yeah, I think the Colts were interested in him, and I think the Jags were also interested in him, and they poached him away from both of those teams, and now he is a Titan. Would have been perfect for the Colts in that defense, but yeah, I'm still undecided on what to think of the Titans going into next year, just because I think that Will Levis is really just a giant question mark. But yeah, good trade, weird roster construction, but I guess the Titans are kind of on their way up. I thought the Titans were going to be one of the worst teams in the league this year, and they won't be now. They just simply won't be. Let's keep going here. A couple small things left. The NFL has announced that there will be another Christmas game this upcoming season. Like, fine, sure. However, the reason a Christmas game made sense last year was because it was a Monday and Monday Night Football. It happens every Monday during the season. It is what it is. But Christmas this year is on a Wednesday. So the NFL's actively like messing up their schedule just so they can have a game on Christmas. I'm not opposing. Like, I love football. It doesn't affect me. But if I'm like a player on Christmas they normally don't play on Christmas unless it's a Sunday or Saturday or one of the actual days that they schedule football on, not a Wednesday, I'd be a little pissed off. I would like to spend the day with my family if I was one of them, but I mean, the NFL, they're the money league. Yeah, it's all about money at the end of the day. I just think it's a little stupid. But yeah, if the NFL wants to own Christmas, wants to fully take it away from the NBA, they can. They can do it. But yeah, so Christmas game is on a Wednesday this year. Weird. And last note up for the NFL Weekly Update here. A couple new teams getting some uniforms. Lions getting new uniforms. Broncos getting new uniforms. We already saw kind of the leaked pictures of the Texans uniforms. And I think the Jets might be getting new uniforms again. I might be wrong on that. But Lions and Broncos definitely confirmed. Don't know what those jerseys are going to look like. I hope the Broncos go back to kind of what they had in like the 80s and 90s, like those colors of Broncos uniforms, because those were incredible. Those are some of the best jerseys of all time, potentially. Maybe. I could be wrong about that, but I really like those jerseys. I'll also be interested to see how the Lions do it up. I think that the Lions, again, they got some nice colors. Let's see what they do. Yeah, that does it for the NFL Weekly Update, though. Let's get into some NFL draft talk, some wide receiver talk. And yeah, this is basically just like me talking about these guys, because all of these guys I'll say I have is like day 1, day 2, like ranked players. And there's a bunch of guys who are also going to be taken round 4 or 5, who in most other draft classes would get taken on day 2, but because there are so many wide receivers this year, it just bumps them all down. So obviously we know at the top, Marvin Harrison Jr., Rome Odunze, Malik Neighbors. Those are the big 3. All 3 of those guys will be going in the top 10. Boom, lock it. It's done. All 3 of those guys confirmed going in the top 10 per my sources. My big brain, that's my source. And I'm not going to talk about those guys. We all know that they're excellent, excellent prospects. Some of the best wide receiver prospects that we've had over probably since the Jamar Chase, Devonta Smith, like Jalen Waddle type year, but like, except it would be like three Jamar Chases essentially. Yeah, so I'm not going to talk about those guys. Those guys are all excellent. So we'll start talking about the my next 10. So starting off with number 4, we got Brian Thomas Jr., Malik Neighbors' running mate at LSU. Uh, yeah, he's, oh my god, this is, oh, why, fuck off. Leggy screens. But yeah, Brian Thomas Jr., 6'3", 209, ran a 4.39, I believe, at the combine. That is elite speed, regardless of his size. Factor in that he's 6'4", 6'3", 209. That is like otherworldly speed for someone that size. He is excellent. Like he wide receiver 1. I'd put him at wide receiver 1 in last year's class with guys that included Zay Flowers, Jordan Addison, Jackson Smith, and Jigba. Like Brian Thomas would have been in the mix with those three guys. I guess Quinn Johnson, but we all know how his NFL career has started. Not very well. Like big vertical deep threat, led the FBS in touchdowns in college last year. Excellent body control, comes away with a lot of 50-50 balls. Like he is stretch the field type guy. Not a lot to really dislike about his game. So yeah, he comes in at number 4 for me. Dude's just excellent. Dude is excellent. The next guy I will talk about is Ladd McConkey. Ladd McConkey out of Georgia. 6 feet, 186. Also ran a 4.39. And I did the jokes about him where, he's quicker than fast. He's shifty. He has a high motor, a quick twitch guy. Like all of the white receiver tropes that we give out to guys. But like Ladd has also been comped to guys like Edelman and guys like Cooper Kupp, who are primarily slot players, where, of course, Ladd can do a ton of damage from the slot, but he has that speed to be on the outside, and his route running is crisp. He's one of the better route runners in this class, where that's the thing, and he has the breakaway speed. So top on that 4.39 speed on top of the electric change of direction, I think Ladd is going to be a very good NFL player for a very long time. I don't know if he'll ever be a top 10, top 15 receiver in the league, but he's going to be someone who, yeah, so I don't know if he'll be a wide receiver 1 in the league, but he will be a goddamn one of the best wide receiver 2s in the league. And I still think that he has the ceiling to be a wide receiver 1. I don't see it personally, but he is excellent. He will be asked to play all over, whether it be outside, in the slot, not out of the backfield probably, but I am a big fan of Ladd McConkey out of Georgia. And we'll talk about this next guy here, another guy who ran a 4.39 at the combine. Did I actually get that wrong with Brian Thomas? Nah, it doesn't say here, but I think that all three of those guys ran a 4.39, which is weird. But I'm talking about Xavier Leggett out of South Carolina. He has really risen up my boards over the last couple months. So he's 6'1", 220, also ran a 4.39. Like running a 4.39 at 220 is absolutely insane. I mean, I talked about Brian Thomas doing it at 6'3", 209. Insane. 220 is unheard of, basically. Like, that's like Calvin Johnson, and I think Chase Claypool was close. I think Chase Claypool ran a 4.4, though. Like, that's kind of where he's lining up, though. He's a good route runner. He's not a great route runner. He averaged 17.7 yards per catch. Like, he is a deep threat. You put the ball in his hands, he is a yak monster, and his story is a sad one. Coming out in high school, Both of his players passed away within like a relative few months of each other. So like that obviously that has effect on anyone, and especially as a kid in high school where football it gets put on the back burner, obviously, and then he goes to school. He's kind of like like not working out, not working out. People are worried. He's a 1 year wonder. But it just this was the year that things just finally kind of clicked for him, and I think he does have one of the highest ceilings. I mean, it's hard to say he has one of the highest ceilings in this draft as a wide receiver when you consider like Marv, Neighbors, and Odunze are all going to probably compete for like top 5 wide receivers at some point during their career. But I think Xavier Leggett has that potential in him. He's someone I would love for the Dolphins to draft at 55. I doubt that happens, but I just think that he is excellent and the league is built for a guy like him. Yeah, one of my rising up my board quickly. One of my favorite players. It's just it's hard. He's fast. He's powerful. He breaks tackles. Like and like again, he's just gotten better every year, every year. And you get him in the right spot, I believe that he is going to be an absolute monster at the next level. Next guy up here is I have Keon Coleman out of Florida State, 6'3", 213. Where I talked about these last 3 guys. Oh, they're all fast. They're all fast. Keon Coleman did not have a good 40 time at the combine. However, during his gauntlet drill, he had the fastest time. So the gauntlet drill is when you kind of run on that straight line and ball's coming from your left, catch that. Ball's coming from your right, catch that. And because he's so confident in his hands and his body control, he can run at full speed while doing that drill and know that his hands are good enough where it's not going to waver him. Where someone like Troy Franklin, who I'm going to talk about further down this list, Troy Franklin ran a 4.4. He's one of the better, he's a deep threat in this class. He ran a 4.4, but he was what's the word? Waving? I don't know. He was basically like a snake. He was running an S instead of in a straight line during that drill. So Keon Coleman's play speed is what mattered, and that's what the next gen stats tracked at the combine. Where even when running the vertical routes at the combine, he still managed to have one of the top speeds. Like his play speed is undeniable. His play speed is what matters. His 40 time, who gives a shit? He's fast enough to play in the NFL, and his body control and his contested catches. Like, he is a separator. You put a linebacker on him, you put a smaller corner on him, he will box you out. He's also a former Div 1 basketball player. He'll box you out. He's going to catch that ball. Excellent jump ball guy. But yeah, I have him at 7 over here. Does ESPN have anything to say about... No, talking about the 50-50 balls. Like, dude's great. I love Keon Coleman. My next receiver up here is I have Xavier Worthy. I have Xavier Worthy out of Texas. Obviously, broke the record at the combine, 4.21. Blazing fast speed. He also has a quick change of direction. His route running is good. I have him this low because he weighs less than 170 pounds, where a guy like Tank Dell, who I think Tank Dell is 5'8", 5'9", 170. Yeah, that makes sense. You're short. Xavier Worthy's 5'11". Like, I hope that he'll be able to... He weighed in at the combine at 165. I would hope that he could add another 15 pounds, and he'd still keep that blazing speed. Like, he'd still be a sub 4.3 easy at 180. But right now, it's his weight that really concerns me. Nothing else really in his game, and I probably should have him higher up because his weight shouldn't really be that much of a concern to me. But, yeah, Xavier Worthy is mine. What did I say? Number 8? Number 8. number 8 guy right now. I like him better than his teammate AD Mitchell. Both guys have kind of some compete issues, and I will. I'll get to that soon, but yeah, hard not to like Xavier Worthy's game. He's another guy who, obviously, I would love him on the Dolphins. Can you imagine if we had Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, and Xavier Worthy? No one could cover those 3 guys if they were on the field. And let alone we got Mostert and Achane, 2 of the fastest running backs in the NFL in the backfield. Like, it would be a very, very hard offense to stop. I think that Mike McDaniel, he's sitting back there, he's in his draft room, he's twiddling his fingers, and he wants Xavier Worthy so bad, but I don't think Chris Grier is going to give it to him. We still have some other holes to fill on this team before we reach for a wide receiver 3. But Xavier Worthy would be a great one to definitely go up and grab. And yeah, I have his teammate AD Mitchell in at number 9. And that's low. That's obviously low for a guy who has shown there on most boards he is in the top 5. He's definitely in most people's top 7. But 6'2", 205, ran a 4.34, like very fast. Very, again, for that size, that's phenomenal. But my issue with him, and this is kind of because as a Miami fan, our offense is revolved around anticipation and timing and trusting your guys are going to give 100% effort every play, run the correct routes, don't do lazy, don't do a lazy out when you're supposed to be turning on that 90 and the ball's going to be there. AD Mitchell, a lot of time on the tape. If he knows the ball isn't coming to him, he's not running. And obviously it's college and people question Quinn Ewers' deep ball. I've seen a lot of throws where I'm like, yeah, why would you be running if like this guy's not even like gonna try to get the ball to you? And I get it, but NFL teams look at that and be like, that's a concern. Now, obviously, I think that once he gets to the NFL, he's gonna be busting his ass a ton. But it's part of the reason that's like Worthy and AD Mitchell, both of their compete isn't there, because there's also balls, I mean, as many balls as Ewers overthrew or underthrew. There was also times where he threw the ball because he's like, okay, his first read wasn't open, like Worthy wasn't open on that play, and he goes to look to AD Mitchell, and he's jogging on the field, like he's not even like trying, and it's like he throws the ball, and he's like, what the fuck, like what are you even doing? Obviously great player, and like that's the thing. It's like, oh no, he's my wide receiver 8. I keep confusing it. Yeah, wide receiver 9. Like, it's the first 3, and then from 4 through 9, that's kind of my next like tier of guys. I think all of those guys are excellent. All of those guys have a chance to be wide receiver 1s in the NFL. I think all of them will be very good wide receivers in the NFL. Obviously, I don't know a lot. Some of them, someone's going to bust from that list. But yeah, I guess I'll go to the next tier of guys. So we got 4 more guys to talk about. Starting off with Ricky Pearsall out of Florida. 6'1", 189, ran a 4.4, 140, had a 42-inch vertical and a 10.9 broad. Like, this man is an athlete. He's got good hands. Like, again, 42-inch vertical. Jump ball receiver. Acceleration's a bit of an issue for him. He played a lot in the slot at Florida, but he was a vertical guy. And once he hits his speed, he's got elite speed. But it takes him a little bit longer than some guys to get up to his top speed. I like his ceiling. I think this is where kind of I break off this tier from those first guys. I think he does have a very high ceiling still, but I think his floor as an NFL player is limited. I think he's more of a project than those other guys that I just talked about, but I like him. I do like him quite a bit. I do like him quite a bit. He has good ball skills. I mean, there was a catch. I don't know what team it was, but He jumped he jumped like 40 inches in the air, one hand catch, and then got smacked. Still hung on to the ball. I love seeing like that. I love seeing plays like that. That's just immediately draft that guy. He can do shit like that. That's not a lot of people can do stuff like that. NFL players can do stuff like that, but that's why he's getting drafted to the NFL. Yeah, so he is an athlete. I do like him a lot. We will move on to my next receiver here. Coming in at number 11, we have Roman Wilson out of Michigan, 5'11", 185. I think he ran a 4.4. He might have ran a 4.3. Either way, another vertical, fast guy. But he did not get the opportunities like some of these other guys did in college. Obviously, coming from Michigan and J.J. McCarthy being his quarterback. And we've had these conversations about J.J. where he was not asked to do literally anything on the field. And because of that, players like Roman Wilson weren't asked to do anything on the field from a wide receiver, from a passing standpoint. It is what it is. They won a national championship. You can't complain about it. But he's someone who had limited opportunities during this last year at Michigan. But when he went to the Senior Bowl, he shined. And I do like him quite a bit. We will see if he can, again, hit that next level because like Ricky Pearsall and like the next two guys I'm going to talk about, still a high ceiling. I think a lower ceiling than Pearsall, but maybe a little bit of a higher floor. But yeah, he's someone who just hasn't had his moment to shine and show he can be a wide receiver one because he wasn't asked that. That wasn't his role in college. Again, when he was asked to do that, he did show up. But JJ was only asked to make like 2 NFL throws a game, like maybe. So I got Roman Wilson in at number 11. At number 12, we have Javon Baker out of UCF, 6'1", 202. One of the people who I haven't studied as much. So he was a recruit. He went to Bama, and he got stuck behind. I think he got stuck behind Jameson Williams, and who else was there with JMO? There was another guy there with JMO at the same time. I forget who it was, but I think like JMO, Waddle, and Devonta, because he was a 2020 recruit. So that 2021, it would have been Devonta Smith, Henry Ruggs was 2020. So Devonta Smith, Jalen Waddle, Jameson Williams. He was kind of stuck. So he transferred to UCF, and he had a big season, 52 catches, 1,139 yards, 21.9 yards per catch, 7 TDs. Another one of these big vert guys, only ran a 4.5 something. And like a Pearsall, where it takes him a while to get to that top, like final top gear, whatever you want to call that. I'm not a car guy. It takes him a bit to get there, but once he's there, he's hard to stop. And he's a bigger guy. Again, one of these 50-50 guys, good, great down the field, great ball tracking, good route skills too. Yeah, again, this is where we're going. We're the lower ceiling, lower floor type guys, but I like the ability of Javon Baker. It'll be interesting to see where he goes, how he fits, but I do like him as a player. And last but not least, coming in at number 13 for me is Troy Franklin out of Oregon. And this might come as a shock to some people. Some people have Troy Franklin ranked in those top 7 guys. I've seen him going as a day 1 wide receiver, round 1 wide receiver in some people's mocks. I just don't see it. I don't see it. He's 6'2", 176, ran a 4.4. Like, he's a vertical guy. And as an Oregon guy, I like Troy Franklin. He's a great college wide receiver. And I think that's kind of where his road ends. I also see a guy who doesn't have a lot of confidence in his hands, and that leads to some drops. He's obviously 6'2", 176. That is a very small frame. He gets knocked off his routes quite easily. Like, if you get a hand on him early, that's enough to disrupt him where he might not be like impacting the play anymore, essentially. Like, I view him as, like, I think that he could have a MVS type of career, which, again, MVS Super Bowl champion. He's had a couple good years, but like a wide receiver 3 at best in the league. Like, he will be a vertical guy on someone's team, but like, I think as a third option at best. I don't really see it with him. I think he's solid, but compared to some of these other prospects, and some of these other prospects just have higher ceilings than him, I don't see the ceiling with him. I see the floor with him, and that is an MVS. MVS, good NFL player, has played for a decent amount of time anyways, won a Super Bowl. And that's kind of how I view Troy Franklin. I don't think that's a shot at Troy Franklin, but I think that there are questions with his game which I don't really have with some of these other people, with some of these other vertical guys. Good player, but to me, if you can get knocked off your routes, you have a small frame. You don't have, like, again, his frame's not even small. He's 6'2". He just doesn't have a lot of weight on him. And his hands are like okay. It's a big negative for me. I honestly might have him lower down on my list once we really get down to it, but he's a notable name. Thought I should talk about him anyways. But those are the wide receivers that I talked about. And boom, look at that. Almost a 50-minute episode. I am tired. I need to eat food. It is 6:11 right now. Yeah. I think next week I will be ready to drop my big news regarding a football opportunity with the CFL. I'll explain more next week, but I'll leave you on that little bit of a teaser there to finish the episode. Next week's episode, I have no idea what the fuck I want to talk about. I want to have the guys on to do like a live mock, and if I can't have them on, then I want to do a mock with them, and then I can just go off the mock what we made, and I can give my own expert analysis. So maybe I'll try to line that up with the guys so I can have something to talk about next week on the show. But until then, if you have liked this, please like, share, retweet, subscribe, all that fun stuff. And until next time, peace.